But yeah, as Bon was saying, going to do a little bit more of trainings, a bit more frequently, and also going to be running the coordination meetings. And it's all for the sake of being able to help the clients a little bit more better. I know in vivo, when the clients are present, it may be a little bit tricky to address maybe some of the concerns you guys may have. But yeah, again, ultimately, this time, more time with one another, hopefully will be a benefit to everybody. Yeah, and I really hope you guys don't get tired of hearing my voice, because you may be hearing a little bit more of it as the days goes on. Okay, great. So we're going to start off with the review questions I left off from last time. If you guys remember, we're talking about generalization and maintenance. Just as a brief refresher, stimulus generalization is when the same behavior occurs in a different context. So stimulus generalization. You can think of this as a good example would be if you learn how to check out at, let's say, Walmart, then if you have that skill generalized, can then shop at Target or Trader Joe's. That same skill applies in each context. With response generalization, this is when a different behavior accomplishes the same purpose. You can think of this as using different greetings. Hello, how are you doing? All these look and sound different, but all accomplish the same thing. And the last one is response maintenance, where after we teach or intervene on a particular behavior or response, that response maintains throughout time. So let's take a stab at these. Okay, so first one. A client learns to use the ordering kiosk in McDonald's. Over the weekend, they successfully used the kiosk at the mall food court without any extra training. What has occurred? So we got
A.
Okay, here in A, stimulus generalization. Is there anybody else got any different answers besides A?
Maybe B.
B? Okay, it's either between A or B. Let's see. This is stimulus generalization. Yes. This is the same behavior, checking out or ordering food on a kiosk, is done in a different context. In this case, it is a different location. But this could also be stimulus generalization if this was done in the presence of, let's say, somebody else. Let's say this client had their community integration outing. They were able to check out at McDonald's, and then maybe during the weekend they went with their care home staff and were still able to do the same behavior. So that would also be stimulus generalization. If it was response generalization, it would look different but accomplish the same thing. So, for instance, them just checking out to a cashier. Okay, you have spent weeks teaching an adult client to say hello when somebody entered the room. Today, the client said, "Hey there," instead. This is an example of...
A.
Okay, I'm hearing a lot of A. Yes. Very good. Yes, this is a response generalization. Okay. Which of the following best describes the acquisition phase of a skill? So this is the client be able to perform it in multiple settings. The behavior is an admin inter-schedule reinforcement. The client is learning a new target or often requires more prompts, or a probe once a month. C?
C.
Let's see.
C.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. All the other three describe when a skill is in the generalization or maintenance phase. However, if it's brand new and still requiring some prompting, then we would still say it's in acquisition. They're still acquiring the skill. Okay, on that note, What are the primary differences between maintenance and generalization? So there's no difference, they're the same. Maintenance requires prompts while generalization does not.
D.
Here in D? Okay, let's see. Yes, D. Maintenance is about time. The test of time, if the behavior is able to outlast the period of intervention, then we would say it's been maintained, whereas generalization is just about the different conditions or contexts that the behavior can occur in. And then last review question. During a community outing, we observe a client using a crosswalk button correctly. They were only ever taught to do this by following a video model in the classroom. What is this? I'm hearing C. Yes. It's generalization across settings. If it can happen in the classroom, then it can happen at the crosswalk by their home. It could happen at the crosswalk downtown. We would say the skill has been generalized. Great. Okay, good stuff.
6.
Oh, I have one more. It's the other one that I have. Only 5, 4. Okay, last one. To promote generalization, BCBA instructs to train loosely. And what does that look like at the day program? Remember, for training loosely, we want to be consistent, but not do everything so exact every single time. Yes, C. Yeah. Because if we use the other ones, the client or the learner may be dependent on that type of the delivery of the instruction in order for the behavior response to occur. But if you mix things up every now and then that's the way we can ensure that it happens in a different context. Okay. Any questions before moving on? No? I think we're good? Okay. In that case, let's talk about shaping. So what is shaping? Shaping is another one of these teaching procedures, very similar to chaining. And instead of breaking down a complex skill into small chunks, where you would then teach and prompt ones as you go through the steps, you would then instead just reinforce it getting closer and closer to what the behavior is supposed to look like. And for me, a great example of this would be learning how to play an instrument. Initially, if you're trying to learn a song, for instance, bless you, you're trying to learn a song, but initially you're not going to quite get all the notes right or your timing just right. So you would then try to get it closer and closer. Your timing's going to improve to the point where you're able to replicate the appropriate behavior. In this case, the song. Let's everybody okay for me to click out of it? Okay. So this is what it looks like, how it would be delivered in as far as instruction. If it wants the properly. Okay.
So essentially it is approximations and reinforcing the approximations until the client is able to master whatever the task is. In this scenario, we will be teaching our client, or I'll be teaching the client, how to say the word boss. Over a period of different sessions, we will gradually get her, or hopefully get her, to say the word boss. So the first session, we're just going to see if she can just pronounce the first letter, which is B. Delilah, can you say, or can you pronounce B for me? Good job. In the second session or the next session, we'll go ahead and progress even more and continuing on for the word. Devaya, can you say ba for me? Ba. Good job. And then in the next session or future sessions, we'll see if we can progress for her to say the whole entire word. Devaya, can you say ball for me? Ball. Good job.
Great, that was a good common example. So in this case, the learner was learning how to say the word ball, but we didn't start off with saying the entire word. Maybe she may have had some difficulty pronouncing it. So we instead just reinforced instances where the response got closer and closer to the target. In this case, ball. Yeah, and like chaining, shaping is useful when a skill has a lot of steps. It's a little complicated. The behavior doesn't occur all that much. And depending on the individual's preference or the nature of the skill they're learning, you would choose to do either the chaining or the shaping because they are very similar forms of instruction. Even the word shaping gives the proper connotation because we don't think of behavior as this stiff and rigid phenomenon. No, as time progresses, it can be susceptible to changing. So think of a piece of clay that you can mold into whatever it is you want it to be. Same thing when it comes to behavior. Okay. Oh. Yeah, so some of the examples of shaping that we may come across is increasing independent responses. So this will look like what we saw in the video, where a client may have trouble pronouncing or saying a particular word or phrase, and we would reinforce the approximations of them getting closer to the target phrase. For instance, somebody wants to learn, oh, I need a break. So you would reinforce I need, and then I need, followed by I need break, I need break. Yeah, shaping is also pretty good at increasing the duration of performing certain tasks. So things that involved lengthy activities that you can stop in between. Of course, for transitioning. Oh, I have something here.
Yes.
A shaping example. Let's see what this looks like.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
All right, we're going to demonstrate shaping, which is setting a final behavior goal and reinforcing the steps to get to that goal. We're going to demonstrate it by learning the word bathroom. All right, you say bath.
Bath.
Good. Bath.
Bath.
High five. Bath.
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 Good. Bath.
Bath.
High five. Bathroom.
Bathroom.
Good. Bathroom.
Bathroom.
Good. High five. All right. Bathroom.
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 Very good. Bathroom.
Bathroom.
High five.
So even something simple as asking to use the restroom can be broken down, and it doesn't usually happen that quickly, but throughout time, as that behavior gets reinforced, it gets closer and closer to what it is meant to be. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, so this is going to be more or less the procedure to properly implementing shaping. So first we identify a target behavior. Let's say it is getting a client to ask to use the restroom, since that's now stuck in my mind. You then meet them at where they're at by assessing their current level. So what can they do to ask to use the restroom if they have a very limited vocal ability and have a tough time copying or imitating what we say, that we might choose to go with something else, such as ASL, doing that sign, and then shaping and reinforcing that. And then, yeah, breaking it down into smaller and smaller chunks so then we know what to reinforce as they begin to acquire the behavior. And not to jump the gun too fast, allowing them to learn the proper response before moving on to the next step. And the other thing too is once they have a particular shape, so let's say they can do this already, we stop reinforcing them just doing this. Since we already know that that's something they can do, that they have mastered, we then only reinforce the current target. So then the behavior can keep improving. Everybody good to move on?
Yes.
Okay. I like this example.
Terminal goal there.
This is a more academic example of what shaping looks like, but I think it's a little bit more on the fun side of the applicability of shaping procedures, because it's not just with the clients and not just with us humans, but it can also be done with animals too. So I think it's really helpful to get an example of that.
Her target behavior was for her to ride independently. So you set the target behavior. You have to identify the starting behavior. What skill do they have in their repertoire? All right. You then have to select the shaping steps. And I'll give you one other example of how this could work. Back when I was in grad school, I taught this in College for Kids class, and they paid me $500, and I earned every penny of it because I think I had 16 kids who were all about ages 10 to 12, and they each had a rat that they had to teach how to press a lever. And it's interesting, kids who are 10 to 12 actually seem to like rats. Something happens when you get into like high school or college, nobody seems to want to hold a rat. These kids are like, oh, they're all excited, right? Their end project was teach your rat to do something really cool. All right, I left it kind of vague, all right, what they should do. And so the final day, some of the kids came in and they had taught their rat to climb a ladder and go down a ramp and through a tunnel. You know, it was all kind of handmade stuff. This one other guy had kept his door closed the whole time, told me not to come in, all right? I'm like, oh, what's going on? So day of the big day when they were showing off what they're doing, he brings his rat out. And I said, what does your rat do? And he says, I taught him the moonwalk. And this rat, this is probably the worst demonstration of moonwalk ever, but this rat would go up to the front of the cage and would walk backwards. It would be like that. And he'd give it a pellet of food and then come running forward and eat it. And I was just cracking up. I'd never seen anything like that. And again, this is like an 11-year-old kid. So I started running around the building. It was summer, and there weren't that many people, but I managed to get like 4 professors and about 10 of my grad student friends. I said, we got a Michael Jackson rat. I said, it's unbelievable. But again, there's a case of a 10, 11-year-old kid who understood how you shape that up. And when I talked to him about it, and he didn't even ask me, right? When I talked to him about it, though, he said, I noticed at one point the rat just kind of stepped backwards, and I gave it a pellet of food, all right? And then I did that a few times, and the rat did this. I gave it another pellet of food, all right? And basically, it's like, before you know it, he's like, the rat's like moving like that. So shaping, and again, if you're a pet owner, you probably use shaping on them too if you're trying to.
Yeah, the principles of behavior applied to just more than us humans. But yeah, again, more comical example of what shaping can accomplish. in that case, it might not have been the most thorough procedure, given that he didn't plan for the animal to begin moonwalking. But it just happened incidentally where he began reinforcing that particular response. And yeah, the rat learned how to moonwalk. Okay, so I want to take a few examples from the BIPs and the ISPs. So this one should be a little familiar to some of you in the backyard room. So R will write a short, simple sentence with fading prompts. And then I add just a little bit more of a criteria for that. So up to a 10-word sentence with no more than one model prompt. So the idea here is to get him to increase the amount of he's writing in a given sentence. So in order to shape that properly, we would first begin with giving him the model of writing out the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. And the reason why I picked this sentence is because it has every single letter in the alphabet. So first we reinforce him writing out the first 4 words, which, given what I've seen from him, he can easily do. And then we reinforce the next 2 words, adding on jumped over, and then being able to reinforce the entire set. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. And then another example. This another individual in the backyard room being able to ask for a hug. So the sign for hug is this. Kind of think of it as a Wakanda greeting. So you would begin by shaping this up if this is not something that's already in his skill set or repertoire. You would have him do both fists in his hands, reinforce that for a little bit, and then having him lift them up, reinforce that until he's able to cross them over, and then he has the entire target. So we can gradually shape that as the opportunities come along. Okay. Let's see. Any questions before addressing some of the troubleshoots for shaping? You good so far? Okay. Yes. When shaping is implemented, again, you gotta meet the individual, the learner, or where they're at. So you gotta be able to pace the approximations at the appropriate amount. So you could only imagine what could have happened if the child tried to reinforce the moonwalking too quickly. All the animal would have ended up doing is just taking a few steps back each time, which is not what, I mean, not cool enough in order to get a final grade in that class. And as I mentioned this earlier too, about reinforcing the previous steps. We don't want to reinforce it because then we're kind of regressing it. If we're kind of settling for the earlier instances of the behavior, then they're going backwards, not forwards, towards the target. Yeah, and then making the steps too long and too large, just like with backwards or forward chaining, you want to break them up as small as possible. So then it becomes manageable for the learner. And okay, that brings us to the questions. Any questions from you guys before we move on to these? No, we're good? Okay, awesome. In a shaping procedure, what do we reinforce?
C.
Okay, C. So are we reinforcing the successive approximations? Yes, we are. Yeah, the first one is a no-go. Same as the second one. C is the only one that really makes sense. Okay, when you're shaping to teach a client to use a microwave, what should you do once they master opening the door?
C.
C. Yes.
C.
Yes, you move on to the next step. You don't stop reinforcing entirely. Then they're never going to learn how to microwave. and there's no reason to punish them if they don't know what to do next. And we don't reinforce again until they get the new step in. Okay. When implementing shaping, why is consistency among everybody vital?
A.
A? Okay, let's see. Yes. We don't want to confuse them with different targets towards the goal, the same goal that they're working towards. To use the previous example, you can imagine how confusing it is if we're teaching them to use a microwave and they got the opening the door step down, but then somebody reinforces them putting it in, somebody reinforces them putting it in, and then clicking the add 30 seconds button. They would not know what to do in that situation. Okay, two more. A client is learning to type their name. They can type the first letter J. The RBT stops reinforcing J and now only reinforces J. What is this an example of?
C.
Yes. Moving on to the next successive approximation. Getting closer and closer to them spelling out their entire name. And I believe this is going to be the last one for shaping. When shaping a client to use a spoon, you notice that they are becoming frustrated because when you stop reinforcing holding the spoon, they are now waiting for scooping. What should you do in this scenario?
B.
Oh, yes. Oh, well. Got started me there. Yes, it is B. Kind of go back again, meet them where they're at, and start reinforcing, just build up that momentum, increase the motivation to get the proper response before increasing the criteria. Okay. Last call. Any questions for shaping before we move on? We're good? Shaping makes sense? Okay, awesome. Okay, now we're going to talk about token boards and token economies. This is the last component in the skill acquisition section of the RBT test outline. Okay, what is a token economy? This is not exactly a teaching procedure like the ones we've been looking at so far. This is more of a reinforcing strategy where a individual has a list of criteria of target behaviors that we're trying to reinforce, and instead of getting this big reinforcer every single time, they get these tokens. They can be in the form of stars or points on a whiteboard or stickers. And these are supposed to be reinforcing in themselves. And once they get enough tokens, that is when they get access to a bigger reward. When it comes to token economies themselves, in the name, certain rewards, or as they're referred to here as backup reinforcers, can have different value. 15 minutes on the iPad shouldn't necessarily be worth as much as a preferred food item, for instance. So those things are going to have different values. Some are going to be worth more or less tokens, and it's going to be up to the individual to decide how they spent the tokens they earn. Now, the idea of tokens, I think, is most analogous to money. As you guys may have recalled when we talked about reinforcement, there are things that are referred to as generalized reinforcers that can be applied to multiple instances of things that can be reinforcing. And there's no better example of this than money. You can use money to get all kinds of stuff, or get yourself all kinds of things you find reinforcing. And it's going to be the same thing for tokens. Money and tokens in themselves don't have any value. It's the fact that they can get you what you want that gives them their value. So just for a brief, I'll show the video afterwards. Just to give you guys an idea of what a token board may look like. This is the most basic form. I think this is probably, if you are going to use one, the way you should go about it. But they can also get quite creative. Yeah, I like this one because it makes it very explicit as to how many tokens they have, what they're working for, and then the different options that they have available. So they can work for the iPad, fruit snacks, toys, games, and candy. Although fruit snacks are kind of candy. But yeah, that's me. They can even make ones that are characteristic or individualized for the learner. Although I tend to shy away from these. When you have clients who, let's say, like tangibles, like items, especially items of their favorite characters, like let's say SpongeBob, they start instead of giving the tokens away to get the backup reinforcer, they want to keep the tokens, which kind of defeats the purpose of implementing the token board. So I tend not to use these that much. And this is I would say a very creative way of designing your token board. Instead of tokens themselves, you have pizza slices. I guess this individual really likes pizza. Although none of the backup reinforcer are pizza, which is interesting. It says snack. That must be speaking up. Okay, let's see this in use.
This video will demonstrate how you can use a token board with your child.
Or adult.
What do you want to work for today? We have Lego, coloring, and set. Pick one.
The Lego.
Okay, let's work for your Lego. Ready? Ready. Okay, now touch your nose. That's your nose. Great. Touching your nose. What letter? T. Very good. That's letter T. Okay, how about you show me where is letter E? E. Amazing. You get 1 star. Okay, and what fruit is this?
Banana.
It's a banana. And what color?
Yellow.
It's color yellow. Very good. You get another star. The second star. Where's your head? That's your head. Where's your nose? Nose. I think it is. Nice copy. You get another star. Okay, let's count for your stars.
1, 2, 3.
Stars, and we get
Lego.
Lego. Here you go.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. The individual
In
there.
this video, we're going to talk about discrete trial.
In that example, as you saw, he wanted to work for Legos. He needed 3 tokens, so he did a little bit of instruction in order to get the Legos. Okay, so we saw all these. Okay, with the advantages of the token board, you see that you get immediate feedback. Oh yeah, good job. And by the way, here's something that brings you closer to the thing you want. How incredible. And we saw just how cooperative that learner was in the video. So this is another way we can increase desired behaviors, particularly that of staying on task. I would say the biggest success that I've had with token boards are with the itty bitty guys, the ones with ADHD who are just running around trying to play with all their toys. If you make a break time one of their rewards that they work towards by doing table side activities, then all of a sudden you have something that can be reinforcing as they go through their given tasks. As you saw with some of the examples of the token boards, they can be quite individualized, cater to the individual's interests, and yeah, it teaches delayed gratification because you're not delivering the big reward, the big reinforcer immediately. They are instead working towards it by getting the tokens. Okay, so that's all the good, most of the good that comes with token economies. Yeah, well, let's think about the bad, the disadvantages. And admittedly, I've become not the biggest fan of token boards or token economies for some of these reasons. One, they can be very time intensive to not just learn to pick up and train the staff or everybody who's going to implement it. I kid you not. I've only implemented a token economy probably once or twice in the care homes. And one of the issues that I ran into is once one client gets one, everybody else in the house wants one, even though they don't need it. And then, of course, with the multiple staff who are going in different times of the day, everybody's going to have to be on the same page as to what they get, how the client's going to get the tokens, and then what time to deliver the reward. It is quite labor intensive. Oh, yes. And then token depends. Oh, man, it is so excruciatingly difficult to fade. Once somebody has a token board and they become, I would say, somewhat reliant on it for their motivation to do the target behaviors, it is so hard to remove. Because you really have to do this real systematic fading where the intermediate schedule that you're putting in place is high enough to where it would even go beyond what is naturally occurring. And then, yeah, cost of rewards. These backup reinforcers are not cheap. Somebody's going to have to pay for them, especially when they involve snacks or goodies. And on that note, too, token economies really promote a lot of tangible reinforcers. So let's say for an individual who more is driven by praise or social reinforcement, it's not going to be something that can be well suited for them unless the reward would be spending 20 minutes with so and so or going out with another preferred individual. Yeah, I have become not the biggest fan or proponent of token boards for this very reason. But it can't be effective in the right context. I will say that much. Okay, let's say you want to get a token economy up and running. What do we need? We need the target behaviors, the things that we're looking out for that are maybe listed in the ISP, the BIP. You, of course, need the tokens, the individual items that the individual will collect. They'll get them towards their backup reinforcers, which again are the preferred items, the rewards, and you can have them be placed in a menu. So after the individual goes through one cycle of getting a backup reinforcer through the token board, they can then choose something else they can earn. And yeah, exchange rate, how many tokens you need for a particular item, and the clear, explicit guidelines on how to get those items. How many tokens is required, and what do I have to do to get them? Yeah, just trying to think of a practical way to apply a token economy in our setting. Again, kind of stumbling across some of the same issues as we do in the care home. But just to give an example of what it may look like here, I have this BIP goal for one of the clients at the lower level. So M will move towards a staff member until he is within arm's length following a verbal or gestural prompt. So just following a safety instruction. So for him, the token plan may be to get one token every time he follows a safety instruction, and then 5 tokens after he earns them as he's out in the community where it's more necessary for him to follow these safety instructions. He gets a choice of the activity, or he could get a car related item. You may already know who I'm referring to by that. But yeah, this individual is also highly driven by praise and social reinforcement. So again, implementing something like a token board may not be completely necessary in this context. Oh yeah, that's all I had. That's all I can think of. Okay, I think this might be one of the last things here. Guidelines for effective token economies. Just like with any reinforcement system, you want to deliver it immediately, make it contingent upon behavior, and in order to properly fade them, you want to pair it with praise. So then once you fade the tokens, there's still the praise in place, and the praise can take the place of the reinforcing value that the tokens would have had. Again, being consistent, making the exchange rates reasonable and achievable. So let's say having the individual follow 5 safety instructions and them not having that many opportunities to achieve it is kind of unfair and wouldn't really lead them to acquiring the backup reinforcer. And then, making sure the backup reinforcer is truly motivating. Let's say one of those examples where we saw the individual gets to work for fruit snacks and candy. Well, maybe they don't like candy. Maybe they don't like fruit snacks, and those backup reinforcers won't work that well. Follow the behavior plan. Actually, I need to change that. The last one. Because primarily, we want it to be a positively reinforcing strategy. And if we implement a response cost, that is more of a less of punishment procedure. Because what we're doing with response cost is we're removing a token if they did a non-desired behavior. There are very few instances in which that can fly and can be the case, but it is something that can be a possibility, although I myself tend to shy away from it. So that's what we got going on for the token economies. Any questions regarding tokens, token boards? Ready to move on to the questions? Oh, I forgot this one. Mistakes. Conversely, with following the best guidelines, you don't want to wait too long. You want to deliver the token immediately. Again, same thing. You want to be consistent. Make sure the exchange rates for the tokens are not too high. And this is a big one. Honoring the exchange of the token. If they do something to deserve the token, they should get the token, even if they forget it. And of course, making sure that the backup reinforcers are meaningful and reinforcing for the individual. Okay. All right, what is the primary function of a token in the token economy system?
D.
Okay, I'm starting to hear B. Anybody else got anything different besides B? No? We're all in agreement? Yes. Just like with money, the delivery of, let's say, a paycheck serves as a gap between you performing a particular behavior, i.e. going to work, to the delivery of the backup reinforcer, the things you want to purchase with your money. So which of the following can be considered a backup reinforcer? So I hear C. You guys got anything else? Remember, the backup reinforcer can be thought of as the
Different
reward.
from what you have on the.
D.
It's different. Just when I thought I screened it perfectly. Okay. Wait, is this 2?
Yeah.
Okay, so I heard B
D.
on the sheet, and you're right. Yes, the 15-minute activity. Yes. Yes, you guys are right. This is wrong. The correct answer is B.
Choosing 15-minute.
Yes, the 15-minute activity is the reward. Okay. I've only had one mistake so far, so I'll take it. Okay. All right, question 3. What must be done before a client starts using a token economy? So I'm hearing C. Anybody else got anything different? C? Yep. They must be taught the exchange ratio. And what would be most helpful in these circumstances would to be have it listed most helpful in the form of a visual. So, oh, I need 3 tokens to get this. I need 5 to get that. I earn this many tokens by doing this. Gotta really break it down. Okay. If a client earns a token for a vocational task but then engages in problem behavior immediately after, should you take the token back? So I'm hearing B. B. Yes. It's they did what the exchange rate or the rule stated, so they get to keep it, and that's theirs. And we would have a different approach for the problem behavior. Awesome. And last one, guys. What is token delivery best paired with to ensure long-term success? I switched it again. Oh man. Yes, it's A. It is. Oh, did I? Specific social praise. Okay. Yes. Specific social praise.
Yeah, good job.
Okay, thank you.
And specific social praise.
Yes. Yes. And as to why, yes. As to why they earn the token. Any questions? Where are we going? All right. All right, well, thank you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, so. Thank you, everyone.